Pleased to have Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, back with us on San Diego Sports 760. Man, Kevin, you've been writing. I know that because I read both of these pieces over the weekend. We want to start with the one that you wrote, I think maybe on Saturday, and appreciate you hopping on. The one that is titled Analysis, Padres placing in the top 10 in payroll doesn't jibe with doom and gloom projections. So I guess I would just start there. Like, is it somewhere in the middle, in your opinion, Kevin, that, yeah, the offseason from a fan perspective with the infighting going on right now with the litigation, with the fact that they haven't really made any real move to this point, there's the doom and gloom side. There's also the payroll where it is. Like, is it bad? Is it good? Or is it somewhere in between? And thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, a little bit of both, right? Yes, a little early for it to be bad or for it to be good. I've been in this business a long time. Looks pretty foolish talking about things in December and January and even February and March that were going to happen in August and September. You look back at the history of this team and the moves they've made late, the moves they've made in season. And it is something. And I just thought, especially with Jurickson Profar's comments then being taken as sort of a siren call, it was obviously something that has been on a lot of people's minds. The issue with the ownership, is that why nothing's happening? And I just thought, gosh, I've been thinking about this a long time. Like, no matter who the owner was, like, he was gonna be paying these bills now, and he or she, whoever was in charge of this team at this point, was going to be strapped with certain contracts. And hopefully the idea would be that those players are going to be really good and be the core of the team, and that then you could supplement. And, it really didn't matter who was going to, or who's in charge. It also kind of doesn't matter who signed these players, because the owner of the team now is paying those players. And I think it's interesting that kind of like the perception of the missives that I get via email and other ways, that there's like a fire sale or what have you, or that, they're automatically not interested in winning. I just don't think that is the case. As a matter of fact, I think the evidence says that that's not the case.
Okay. Well, I think the evidence to a lot of fans and to us is, there's nothing happening, Kevin. And
Right.
When the message from the team, which I think this is what fans get really upset with, is the continuation of saying we're going to honor Peter's legacy to win our first World Series championship. And a lot of people interpret Peter's legacy as doing whatever they can, the franchise, to win at all costs, making risks, signing players, making moves. And with none of that happening, and with rumors constantly swirling about cutting payroll and moving guys like Michael King and going to arbitration for the first time and not re-signing Jurickson Profar, I think it's really hard for fans to look at that and not be upset and say, hold on, what is going on here? And why are you using Peter's name and his legacy as something, that you're telling fans, but it's not, your actions are not matching your words.
Okay. And like a lot of that is like, I understand, and it is valid, and not to, one of the things I look back at and I go, how did 2023 work out? I'm not saying that it couldn't have. As a matter of fact, it should have. And I'm just like, what they've done in the off season has not always translated into what happened during the season. And that's where I get a little lost. I just do. I really like the season and how things play out, right? And I get to cover games and, okay, now we're understanding why this team is good or bad. But the signing of players, like, I remember wondering who the left fielder and the center fielder were last year, and who was going to round out the pitching staff, and where the offense was really going to come from. And my goodness, did this team look different in April, May, June, July, August than it did to all of us in January or February. Now, I've pointed out several times that AJ Preller, whether it was brilliance, luck, both, nailed virtually everything last year. And you know what? He's probably going to have to again, based on what it looks like right now, right? So I'm not saying just because you did it last year means that you're going to do it next year. But I think there's lots of evidence, as a matter of fact, 2021 and 2023, that an exciting offseason doesn't result in the kind of team you want. I think Peter's vision, to a certain extent, is being honored by they're not doing a fire sale. I mean, they are paying these players that they are on their roster. And they say, I understand maybe they could be more out in front of it in terms of public discourse. Maybe there'll be some Q&As, or I don't know, at FanFest this Saturday. I don't know what they're going to say that's going to satisfy all of us, but like they say they're going to field a competitive team. And that was really Peter's vision. The fact that it was interpreted by a lot of people that they were going to always be in the top 5 in payroll or something. I don't know that, anybody right now should be held responsible for what people's interpretation was of that.
Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He's back with us right now at San Diego Sports 760. I'm glad you went there with the payroll, because you wrote that, it's in the 200 range right now. It's not complete, obviously. Like you said, it's January. And I think you wrote it'll probably be around their opening day. But you'd also reported, right, and I've seen other reporting, that their payroll would be more in line with 2024. And 2024 was under $200 million. There have been other reports that maybe Dylan Cease or even Michael King could be on the trade block. So do you expect this payroll to be maintained, or is there still a scenario where they try to shed payroll to get back to where they were and assure themselves of staying under the CBT?
I think that they have decided that they're going to be around the 200 mark. Multiple people have said that, that I believe that is what they expect to do. I think that we were all kind of going on, all right, so they said, we were being told, me, other people reporting this, that it was going to be greater than it was, but less than it currently was, right? Like when they had all these, they have all these arbitration figures, that they're the arbitration guys that are going to make a lot of money. And so we didn't know where it was going to be. It's coming into focus to a certain extent that it's going to be around 200. As I wrote, to make additions, it still appears they have to make subtractions. I don't see any way that they don't. I think the activity that they have at least tried to be involved in terms of trades shows they cannot add without also subtracting, because they have some big contracts. And gosh, I honestly don't know what that is, where they subtract. But I don't see how all of these guys making 8 to 20, whatever it is, are here with the team come opening day or shortly into the season. Just don't see how that's possible if you are going to put someone besides who's the kid, Lockridge. If you're going to put, I'm not saying he's not going to, I'm just saying if you're going to put someone besides Brandon Lockridge in left field, if you're going to, have if you're going to fill out your starting rotation, if you're going to have somebody besides Martin Maldonado and Luis Campusano at catcher, I don't see how you are going to keep all of these guys.
Yes, there is a lawsuit going on, and I'm sure there's some legal things that have to take place first before maybe publicly speaking on it. But have you heard anything from the organization that whoever's in charge of this team will be speaking to the fans at any point? Because I feel like right now, with all the fans in the dark, everything's left up for, people to make up their own minds instead of actually hearing from the Padres and the organization and kind of being quiet on this whole thing. That feels kind of like a real big miss to me. Totally
get it. Like, I mean, yes, right? Me too, right? As the guy who would like to have information to be able to dispense it. On the other hand, Eric Kacenda is the chairman right now. So I think it's a different question than you're asking. Eric Kacenda could be talking about the team right now. Sure, absolutely. That's not his style. It's not most Major League owners' style. You can't have Jon Seidler out there right now because he hasn't been approved by Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, the usual spring training address, I would imagine some stuff when whoever the new control person is, expected to be Jon Seidler, whoever that is, that he'll be introduced. And at that time, I'm assuming there's going to be some questions about all of this.
Do you know what Jon Seidler looks like? Have you seen him at Petco Park before, Kevin?
I probably have seen him, and I've seen pictures. Obviously, I've never talked to him that I recall. I don't want to be caught in that, but my absolute recollection is I have never met Jon Seidler. 2012 was a long time ago. I'm not sure. But like most people, couldn't pick him out probably.
Which would bring me to my next question about Sheel Seidler, because again, a lot of the, you wrote about this in your article today. Lawsuit interviews offer differing accounts of Sheel Seidler's past role with the Padres, and you interviewed a lot of people that would have some of this information, and there was maybe consensus. I don't want to speak out of turn. You can speak on your reporting, but there was this consensus that maybe she wasn't intimately involved with the organization while Peter was running the club, but also Jon Seidler hasn't necessarily been intimately involved with the club necessarily either, as in the fact that she hasn't, quote unquote, been intimately involved, those are my words, does that therefore rule her out from rightful, chairman moving forward of the San Diego Padres?
No, not on its own. I'm answering your question. Not at all. The trust, look, all I'm doing is reporting, and the story that you referenced, talked to, I believe it was probably 17 people. After 15, I know that it didn't reach 20. It was a lot of reporting went into the story. Mm-hmm. The story on its own was about her claims in the lawsuit that she was intimately involved. She was Peter's partner. She was involved in deciding on players and that sort of thing. And so the reporting there is kind of unequivocally that that's not the case. So that's that. Does that disqualify her? Absolutely not. What the trust would argue disqualifies her is that she doesn't get to choose, and that the trustee gets to choose, and that Peter made his brothers in succession, Robert, Matt, John, trustees. In Major League Baseball, in almost all circumstances, wants the trustee of a trust to be the control person when that trust owns the primary share of a club. So, like, the logic there that they're following is Peter did not name Sheel. And so that's just fact. He did not name Sheel as a successor trustee. She's not in charge of it. So that's a fact. What my reporting over the past 3 weeks, and I would say my reporting over the past 3 weeks lined up with what my understanding was in numerous conversations with Peter and others over the years, was that Peter never mentioned her as a potential control person. And that's really all that's at stake. Like, I mean, an amazing story if Peter had named her, or whatever it is that Sheel Seidler was going to be the control person of the Padres. That would be an amazing story. Peter Seidler, beloved Peter Seidler's widow, a woman of Indian descent, I believe would be the first of, the first, I don't know what I'm going to say, like all minorities, but certainly the first woman of Indian descent, like all these firsts. That'd be great. It would be, I mean, my gosh, just the idea of Peter's widow, that would be great. That's not what's at issue here, though.
And in this article, people claiming that she had nothing to do or has had nothing to do with everyday operations with the Padres. You also stated that she did help recruit Manny Machado in 2019 by reaching out to his wife, Yanni, and remains close with the couple. Wouldn't that contradict those claims that she has had nothing to do with that? And no, that she has nothing to do with anything.
If we're going on the absolute word of nothing, then yes. My understanding is that has kind of been a role that the wives of team owners have often played. Hey, maybe the husband of team owners, the spouse of team owners have played. I don't know, but I don't know where you're going with that. It's like nothing. What was characterized, and that's all the story was about, was that it was characterized that she was intimately involved, that she was Peter's right-hand man, basically.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, because so are they paralyzed by this lawsuit? Like I see the quotes from Sheel. Obviously, the trust has issued statements. It's a back and forth going on. We've seen how it's played out in other organizations: Baltimore Orioles, Denver Broncos, New York Mets. Some of these take years to litigate. Some are settled, some aren't. You've written through your own reporting that maybe some have speculated they have been paralyzed by this lawsuit. Is this negatively impacting their ability to win on field in any way, in your opinion?
We'll have to wait and see. I absolutely see the argument that it could. Look, if they end up not signing anybody, and obviously they have to sign some people, but like if they end up not improving their team in some way or putting out a playoff caliber team, I think we would all be right to go, hey, wait a minute, like that's not what you guys promised us. And if that's not what you promised us, because by the way, you cut $100 million in payroll last year and you made the playoffs, but you did it by making your team better in creative ways. And you did invest by, taking on Dylan Cease's contract at the end of the year, taking on minimal, but taking on some money. So like that we can buy that was, furthering Peter's vision. But if we are looking back on this 2025 season and they didn't do that, then I would say yes. Right now, yeah, it's a pretty safe speculation, I would say. Like, look, they haven't done anything. And so it's really easy to go, oh, wow, the ownership thing is really paralyzing them. That's certainly the rumors around Major League Baseball, but you got to be careful of those too. I was also hearing at the owners meetings, the winter meetings, they were being sold. I mean, there's rumors like all over the place, and there's things being said. I think I don't want to overstate the reporting that was done on the Roki Sasaki, but that we saw the reporting, I think, in two places, maybe the LA Times, ESPN, or it was at least one of them, right, where the Dodgers used it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly what that meant, but right. we saw that. So yeah, I can't say it's not affecting them, but for us to sit here and like be like that it's, whatever it is, let's say you come down on the side of Sheel Seidler's lawsuit is wrecked this team, or you come down on the side of the Seidler brothers, Matt and Robert and John, they're ruining this team. I don't think that you can say that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't, look, this is all he said, she said type of battle at this moment in time until this thing goes to court and gets settled. But, picking a side is picking a side, but shouldn't it be like the fans has to come first here? I mean, this feels like, two parents and a child getting caught in the middle of a divorce where the child's going to suffer. And right now, going forward, we have yet to see potential outcomes of this lawsuit, but the road that this looks like it's going down potentially is that the fans will be suffering from this potentially for a while.
Yeah, that's fair, and this does suck, man. Like, we got one major league team left, and now it's in the middle of this thing, right? When we're whatever it is, 8-9 years removed from having what was at the time by far the most popular team in town, and another civic treasure. That they're always reminding us, right, that it belongs to the fans. That they're just the stewards. So absolutely, I mean that's. Being in the middle of a divorce or whatever, that's a good analogy. It sucks. I mean, yeah. But how I or anyone else could answer, like, shouldn't the fans come first? Well, sure, but like, even Peter Seidler was a businessman. I mean, I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to say, how can the fans come first? Sheel Seidler gets what she deserves, her and her children deserve, and the Seidlers who are, what should they do to make this right? Because the fans, I don't know how to answer that, but I will wholeheartedly agree with you that this is awful. This is really sucks that the fans of San Diego have to go through this.
And final one for me, Kevin, because you've said this to us before. And I kind of did a double take, and you wrote this in your article as well. And I just wanted to get confirmation from you because I know you're reporting and everything. You reported that Peter was never a billionaire. So right. Can you explain the difference, I guess, between like his net worth looking up online to him not being a billionaire that you have reported?
He's not a billionaire. I don't know. Like, he's just not, he's not, his net worth is not $1 billion.
Okay.
I don't know what AI generated or what Sportskeeda, which I don't even know what that is. But yes, I've seen several places about his work being, well, his company had at one point, or maybe now does, which is a private equity firm, controls whatever $5 billion in. That's by no means Peter Seidler's money. By no means is that Peter Seidler's money. But like when Steve Cohen, he's writing a check for Juan Soto. Peter Seidler was not doing that. I think that's sometimes where I wonder, when it is stated so emphatically by people about what Peter did or how he did it or his worth. Well, what about the $50 million loan that they had to take out at the end of the season, and they got in trouble with MLB? And by the way, Peter did kick in the trust while Peter was sick. So Peter basically did kick in another $50 million to cover the $100 million shortfall. What about that? If Peter was just writing checks freely, why did that happen? There's what about the $100 million capital call? I don't know if it was 2021, 22, whatever. It's been a long couple of weeks. To other owners, the rest of the owners, that was not all Peter Seidler's money, and so I get confused by that. So I have to sort of just be okay, well, I know kind of what the truth is, so I'll just keep reporting the truth. There's only so much I can do to tell people he was not among the MLB's richest owners. Which is a part of the reason, good for you, Peter. Right on. What you did and what you were doing. That's awesome, man. Shame on these other guys that weren't doing it. That probably, if you want to look at it from those of us who don't have billions of dollars and it's easy for us to spend other people's money, we could be why aren't those guys doing it when Peter Seidler was doing it? But Peter Seidler had an awful lot of people to answer to in terms of where that money was coming from. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to why it is so erroneously out there that Peter Seidler was a billionaire.
Maybe because he said, I'm not scared to hand out $500 million checks. He did it so impressively. Truthfully, impressively.
Yeah.
If to not have that money and be willing to potentially hand down $500 million contracts. Kevin, appreciate it. We know it's a lot here. We appreciate you doing it and coming on. You don't have to do that. I appreciate you coming on after I texted you earlier. So thanks for hopping on.
Take care, John.
All right. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will react. Coming up next, Jon and Jim. So again, because there's two things here, this basically commentary opinion piece that it's not all doom and gloom. And I do understand that, right? We work in sports talk radio. I don't do written word. We do spoken word. We're very opinionated, right? We just, what's on our mind? It changes day in and day out. So I understand the premise of saying it's not all skies falling. I do get it. They have Manny Machado. They have Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah.
And then there's this article about, Sheel Seidler and the disputes of her account with the litigation. All right. That's his reporting. He spoke with 15 to 20 people on that reporting. So, I don't even know where you go with it. I think from a fan perspective, to your point, you really hit on this. From a fan perspective, it just doesn't feel good.
No.
And it does feel like the fans are caught in the middle. And I don't care what their payroll is ultimately going to be. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not going to go to the ballpark and be like, I can't wait for an update on litigation. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it does feel like this litigation is getting in the way of their ability to win. And I don't know if that can be proven or not, but it just feels like their lack of actions is why I would say something like that.
Because I've said from the beginning, actions will always 100% of the time speak louder than words. And the main thing from Kevin's first article this past weekend was, there was logic in there. And I agree with some things that he said were along the lines of they spent their money and those players have to perform. Right. If Xander doesn't perform, they're screwed. If Xander has another bad year, that's going to be very bad for the Padres. Mm-hmm. If Manny has a bad year, that's bad. Tatis has a bad year, it's bad. Those guys are paid to be all-stars, so go out and be all-stars. But the temperature of this fan base right now is an all-time high as far as, I guess, not doom and gloom, but
but almost feet to fire too.
Pretty close.
Accountability.
Because nobody knows Jon. Kevin even said he's never met Jon before. And because there's no relationship between the fans and the new ownership group coming in. Mm-hmm. So without that relationship, hey, Jon, Matt, Rob, you got to like prove it. You have to basically create a relationship, which Peter did an amazing job of creating a relationship between himself and the fan base. So then the fan base would trust Peter with damn near anything he did. If he said, look, we're not going to re-sign Jurickson Profar, people would be mad, but people would trust Peter and trust his vision. Nobody has that trust right now with the ownership group.
Well, I do wonder. The one thing I would say is, are they even the ownership group?
They're not yet.
That's the thing. So it's like we're in this like gray, muddied area, and we'll talk more about it on the other side. Like, are they even representing ownership as we sit here in this exact moment? Can they even speak on their vision?
So let's blame Eric Katsenda then.
I don't even. I
don't know.
But again, it goes back to this overall point that this organization has been in such flux since Peter passed, and now we're 15 months removed, and who knows what the next 15 months look like. All right, we'll continue to react to our conversation with Kevin Acee. We have Aztec basketball tickets to give away. We're here until 6 p.m. It's Jon and Jim. Go. I mean, we said the day we saw the lawsuit, we're going to cover the story, and wherever it goes, we're going to go with it. Like we're not going to ignore this. It's not going to be the overarching theme daily. Like you said, if they blow a 5-2 lead in the ninth inning, I'm not going to be like, Seidler bros, Sheel.
Yeah, I can't believe Tom made that. No, not Tom.
Matt, this is all your fault.
Yeah, John, I can't believe you blew that save.
We're not going to do that, but like to pretend as if this isn't a massive, massive story that is going to be impactful on the here and now and the future of the San Diego Padres is so disingenuous. How can you cover the San Diego Padres right now and not tell this story? Like, that is so disingenuous. Mm-hmm. How can you cover the San Diego Padres, which, by the way, have had the most boring offseason in baseball history? The biggest story has been they're going to get rid of their pink and green City Connect uniforms.
Oh, shucks.
In 2026. So, like,
it's good news for me.
How can you cover the Padres every single day and not cover this story? Like, this is the story.
It is.
This is the story. It absolutely has to be covered. Now, nobody has said that because of this lawsuit, they're not going to win games. We haven't said that. And I can't guarantee you which way it's going to go, one way or the other. But, I mean, this story's got to be covered. It just has to be. So we're going to cover it.
Yeah. And I just sit here and I just feel really bad for everybody involved, because this is not what Peter would have wanted. It's not. To think that this would be the state of the franchise right now, a couple years ago, it'd be crazy. I mean, are you serious? It's like, what's going on?
Right.
And I also, I can't say for certain, but pretty close. I mean, the feeling of it, if Peter were still here, to think that this would still be happening, that they would be making no moves in the offseason, they would try to be shedding payroll, they would be trading away players, talking about trading away players, going to arbitration with one of their best pitchers, letting, the heart and soul of your team last year walk for a very fair deal, not trying to extend players that are core pieces of your franchise. I am fairly confident in saying that this would not be happening.
Yeah, what is that? Some coincidence that all of that? And by the way, the reason we think, and we talked to Kevin about it, the reason people thought Peter Seidler was a billionaire was based on his spending prowess. He was quoted by, at the time, our very own Marty Caswell as saying, who said that I'm scared to dole out $50 or $500 million checks when they had traded for Juan Soto. And by the way, because what's also being reported today that we haven't fully covered, we've touched on it briefly, what Ken Rosenthal wrote today in The Athletic.
Oh, yeah,
that both Michael King and Dylan Cease are on the trade block does not mean they'll be moved. So let me be clear. It doesn't mean they're going to be moved. But Michael King, who you got for Juan Soto, is on the trade block. Michael King, the key piece in the Juan Soto deal, the first ballot Hall of Famer Juan Soto, who just played in the World Series last year with the New York Yankees, Michael King is on the trade block. So let me get this straight. We didn't see out the 2.5 years of Soto. We're not going to see out the 2 years of Michael King. Like, no. At some point, like that's got to stop. Like, okay, you didn't see out the 2.5 years of Soto, and they actually got better and they won 93 games. Now you're going to move Michael King, and they might not. But you're willing to go to arbitration with this player, your best pitcher, arguably last year, this young core rotational piece. You're going to fight over $1.475 million. That's why people think the house isn't in order. Mm-hmm. They're willing to go to arbitration for the first time in 11 years under A.J. Preller over $1.475 million. Something's not adding up. It's not adding up. It's not all coincidence, Jim, to your point. It's not a coincidence that all of this has transpired post Peter Seidler. That's impossible to imagine.
Yeah, I agree with that. And did you see, I think where this came from, now Ken is reporting this, but Josh Stein, assistant GM, was at an event this past weekend. And Geekster on Instagram, she posted, she was either at this event or had someone at this event, because I think the Padres were there.
I haven't seen this.
That one of the things that Josh Stein, the assistant general manager, said was that they are, yes, exploring trading King, Cease, and or Arise. So, yes, nothing's happened yet.
Yep.
I get that. But if, Aaron comes home and accuses me of cheating on her and I haven't cheated, well, like the accusations there, like you're going to be pretty upset. I haven't done anything yet.
Right.
I haven't crossed that line, but you're still accusing me of doing something. And right now the team is looking to trade or talking about trading some key pieces of this team, not to help them on the field, but like to make sure that the money fits. And so
how can you sell that?
Just because those things haven't happened yet doesn't mean fans shouldn't be upset about it.
And listen, they moved Juan Soto and they had a good year after moving Juan Soto. I'm not going to say that just because they move a player, they're destined to fail in 2025. But again, the perception and reality conversation. You shed $100 million in payroll last year. You traded Juan Soto last year. You didn't re-sign Jurickson Profar. Now you may trade a Michael King or a Dylan Cease. How does this look to your fans, and how does this look to the baseball community as a whole?